All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to our Module 5 review with a question and answer period at the end. This is our last live call with respect to the 5 Homes to Freedom program, this being Module 5, the last module. So let's just jump right in here and get started with the presentation. So lessons 1, 2, and 3 were all about creating $8,000 a month tax-free revenue income. In either 5 years using your own money or over a period of 7 years using other people's money, either joint venture partners or other investment sources as well. So we'll just jump into what the refinance summary actually looked like. We were looking at a $350,000 house at a 4% appreciation. So that meant that after 5 years it was going to be worth $425,828. If we refinance that property at 80% loan to value, which is the maximum that we would be allowed to refinance at, that means we could get a brand new mortgage for $340,662. The mortgage balance after the 5 years is going to be $239,328. Now that's without accelerating the mortgage paydown. That's without applying any extra cash payments to the monthly payment. That's just your conventional mortgage. Doing it this way, you're able to cash out $101,000, and that's going to equate into a monthly payment of over $8,000. So right off the get-go, we've achieved our objective of $8,000 a month tax-free within 5 years. So some questions with respect to this, though. Am I going to have to pay taxes on this money? No, you're not going to pay taxes on borrowed money. This is no different than if you were to go down to the bank and borrow $10,000 to go out and buy a car. Or if you were to go down to the bank and take out a line of credit, either secured or unsecured, it doesn't matter, borrow money from the bank. The money that you borrow from the bank is not taxable income because it's not earned income. And the only money that the tax man can actually tax is earned income. So, is there tax payable on the property itself? Yes. Now, why I haven't talked about that in great detail is because of the different tax laws in the different jurisdictions and different regions that you may be investing in. They're quite different from province to province, state to state. So, it also depends where you're holding your property, whether you're holding your property in your own personal name versus inside a corporation. If you hold it in your own personal name, it then depends on what other sources of income you have and as to what tax rate you're actually going to be paying tax on. So there's a lot of variables with respect to how much tax you would actually be paying. Plus, there's also the benefit, the added benefit when you invest in real estate is that you can depreciate your property up to 4% per year. That 4% depreciation is more than enough to, it's more often than not, it's more than enough to offset the taxable income for the property. And the taxable income is not 100% of the revenue. It's the profit that's left over after all of the expenses have been taken care of with respect to that property, including your property taxes, your insurance, maintenance, interest that you're paying on any debt, etc. Next concern is the new mortgage is going to be larger than the initial mortgage. So that is true. There's no set number here, but I did calculations and it looks like the mortgage value goes up approximately, when you refinance it, it goes up equivalent to approximately 3% a year. Well, over the course of the 5 years, not only does your mortgage increase in value when you refinance, but your rents go up as well. So it's not a complete 100% increase in your expenses. There is definitely going to be some increase in your revenues as well. But you are correct in that your cash flow could take a negative hit with respect to the larger mortgage that you're going to refinance at. Now, in this particular case, the mortgage is definitely larger, but we didn't look at paying down the debt or accelerating the pay down of the debt using that $600 per month. So there was, in the example that we shared, there was a $650 a month profit. We applied $600 a month for the first 5 years towards reducing the debt. And this accelerated our mortgage pay down so that at the end of 5 years, so there's the future value and the potential refinance, the future value is actually down to $201,000, not $239,000. So that's a significant $38,000 price difference. So that means that you're able to take out cash of up to $139,000 if you wish. So you could still take out the same 80% loan to value mortgage, and because you've got a smaller first mortgage, you can actually take out more equity in the property, which means instead of paying yourself $8,400 a month, you can now pay yourself $11,617 a month. That's one option. However, that wasn't the game plan. Our plan was to focus on taking out $8,000 a month or $96,000 a year. So what I've done is I've just rounded that up to $100,000. So if our mortgage balance after 5 years is $201,000, this is after we're doing the accelerated pay down, then we're going to add the equity takeout of $100,000 to that. That means our new mortgage is only going to be $301,000. And a $301,000 mortgage is a 71% loan to value, not 80%. So it's a significantly smaller mortgage, and this smaller mortgage is going to be $187 less expensive than if we were to per month. It's going to be $187 per month less expensive than if we were to refinance in the non-accelerated plan. All right, so here's some more buts. You know, so our interest rates could go up to 10%. They could go up to 5%. They could go up to 15%. Nobody really knows. I'll touch on that in a second. We'll also touch on the appreciation situation. So I used an appreciation of 4%, but it could only be 2%. It could also be 6%, or it could even be negative. So I'll talk about that as well. But first, the interest rates. Now, it is true that the interest rate may drop. It may stay as is. It may also increase. However, we just don't know what it's going to be. There is a hint that we're actually going to be seeing a negative interest rate in the not too distant future. And that sounds like it's just not even realistic that we could have a negative interest rate. But the reality is that in Europe, they've had that for the past couple of years. In parts of Asia, Japan in particular, they've had negative interest rates for many years simply because their economy is not growing. And they can have a negative interest rate and sustain their economy quite well for quite a length of time. The Japanese economy has been struggling for over 20 years now, but it's still continuing to move forward. So there is the possibility that we could see negative interest rates. They've been talking about it in the news a little bit, sort of setting the stage so it's not a big shock to people. So that's what I say. Like in the next year or two, don't be surprised if you see that. Now, in the presentation, earlier presentation, I shared with you a snapshot of what I receive every day from First National. This is Darrell Bellwood. This is the gentleman that I do most of my financing with when it comes to commercial real estate. Now, the way the commercial financing works is that Darrell and First National will borrow money from the bond market and then turn around and lend that money to me. So I'll tell him how much I need to borrow. He'll go to the bond market, see what the rates are, and borrow that amount of money. And then depending on the size of the mortgage will dictate how much of a markup there is. The bigger the mortgage, the smaller the markup. So I usually look at about a 1 to 1.5% markup. So if you take a look at the rate of 1.32% for 5 years, that means I'd be paying anywhere from 2.3 to 2.8% for a 5-year term on a commercial mortgage. Now that's a pretty good rate, and that's the highest rate that's being shown here. It could be as low as 0.76 plus the 1.5%. The point here, though, is that take a look at the 10-year rates. Their 10-year rates aren't a whole lot higher than the 5-year rates. They are encouraging people to lock in for 10 years because they do not see the interest rates going up anytime in the near future. if they thought the interest rates were going to be going back up to 4 or 5%, there's no way they'd be allowing you to lock into a 10-year rate. Now the trend here, those red arrows, are all showing that it's going up. And that was back on June 22nd of 2016. So I thought I'd update that with a current market snapshot. This is July 4th, 2016. And take a look at the rates. They've all come back down below what they were on June 22nd. So this has been going up and down like this for the past couple of years. This is extremely cheap money. And my conversation with Daryl, I basically asked Daryl, given that they're offering 10-year rates at such extremely low rates, is that an indication that they do not see the markets going up anytime in the near future? And he said that's absolutely correct. He said there's no guarantee, but that's what all the financial advisors read into it as well. So again, there's no guarantee the rates are going to stay low, but every indication is that the rates are going to continue to stay low, and they may even drop a little bit lower, which is fantastic news for people borrowing money for assets. Now, appreciation may only go up at 2%. Well, and this is absolutely true as well. The reality is we can't predict what the interest rates are going to be moving forward. However, we do have the opportunity to take a look at what they have been in the past. So I shared with you a graph showing the interest appreciation from 1975 up to 2009. Now you notice from 2008, 2009, it did drop significantly. That was our most recent mini crash in Western Canada especially. I took from 1975 to the peak of 2008, and I didn't include 2009 because here we are in 2016 and we've already exceeded that 2008 valuation. So this 6.2% annually from 75 to 2008 is much more accurate than if I was to use 2009. Now, over the course of these 33 years, you'll see that there's been, looks like two major runs of appreciation, with the most recent one being from about 2001 to 2008. That was the biggest appreciation bubble in the market. But there's been very few drops in the market. There's a drop in 1981, another one in 1990, both relatively small. Even the one in 2008 is relatively small compared to the big picture. So that's what the appreciation has been doing over the course of the past 33 years. However, we don't know what it's going to be doing moving forward. So we can't predict it, but we can certainly control it. And we can only control certain aspects of it. We can't control all of it. We can't control what the marketplace will do, so we can't control what markets are going to go up or what markets are going to go down. Also, not all markets go up or down at the same rate as well. So if you are on the East Coast and markets on the West Coast crash, is that going to affect you in the East Coast? It might have a negative effect, but not nearly as bad as it is on the West Coast. If you are in the big cities, like they keep saying that Toronto and Vancouver are heading for a big bust, especially with respect to the condo market, well, if they drop 20-30%, is that going to affect single-family homes across the rest of the country? It may have a slight negative impact, but it's not going to be the same size of a crash that you would experience in the big cities. So you need to be aware that social media, the news people, they thrive on negative news, and they love to create more hysteria and negative news. You need to keep it all in perspective, though. Another thing that can affect appreciation or depreciation, the values of homes, is the styles and the features in the home. So we are at the leading edge of the baby boomers, and the baby boomers are, as they're getting older, they're looking to move into one-story homes, eliminate the stairs, or reduce them as much as possible. So two-story family homes are not nearly as popular as the bungalows right now. Bungalows will outsell a two-story house hands down. So the bungalows are going to appreciate in value much more quickly and on a steady rise over the next 15 to 20 years compared to this two-story houses. Then there's also the effect of the neighborhoods. Depending on what neighborhood you actually invest in can dictate or affect the amount that the property appreciates in value. You don't want to invest in the bad neighborhood of town, because your property may not appreciate. That may actually depreciate if houses around you get run down. You get bad neighbors, that can affect the value of your property. So you want to make sure you invest in a good, solid neighborhood. And if you really want to take advantage of the appreciation, even in down markets, then you want to invest in an up-and-coming neighborhood, a neighborhood that's going through a transition, and you see the trend moving towards more expensive houses and properties. So that's how you can control your appreciation a little bit. The key point here is to be smart when you're buying the property, and buy it keeping in mind that you want to experience the appreciation if you can. You want the best appreciation possible, so buy in the right neighborhoods, buy with the right features, and just buy it smart. Now, we've already talked about people with no money, no credit, only being able to buy one or two property. And this may or may not apply to everyone on the call or everybody watching the replay here tonight. But the reality is, majority of people who are wanting to get into the game of investing either have no money to get started, or they've got bad credit, or they have very limited money, which only allows them to buy one or two properties. Then they run out of money, or they run into credit issues. And a lot of people really resist getting into partnerships or doing joint venture deals. But the reality is, you take a look at the wealthiest people in the world, and they all do joint ventures. They may not appear like they're doing them, but behind the scenes, they're doing joint ventures all the time with other business partners. Now, the reality is, when you invest your own money, which is absolutely the best way to do it, by investing your own money, you get 100% of the equity growth in that property. However, when you bring a joint venture partner in, your investor or joint venture partner is going to receive 50% of the equity in that property, which means that you will have the other 50% equity in the property. It's going to take two joint venture deals to be the equal to or equivalent of one deal that you invest 100% of your own money in. So the nice thing about this, if you don't have any money though, you do two deals, you got the benefit or the effect of owning one deal 100% yourself without having 1 cent of your money in that transaction. That's how you leverage your money. That's smart investing. So in lesson 2, we talked about using your own money, and we were able to focus on buying 5 properties over the course of 5 years. What happened here was when you come time to refinance that property in year 6, you're able to take out the $8,000, and if you cash out a maximum of what you're able to cash out, you take the savings portion of it and you set that aside in a savings account. So in year 2, you repeat it for property number 2. Your savings account now grows from $28,000 up to $57,000, and you're still paying yourself $8,000 a year. Years 3 and 4, you can increase your monthly payments to $9,000 if you wish, which is going to reduce your annual savings, but it's still a decent amount, over $17,000 for years 3 and 4. And then years 5, you can increase it to $10,000 as well. So it's entirely up to you how much you take out. If you're happy with the $8,000, you can just continue to grow your savings account, which can benefit you in the future if and when you sell the properties. Then in the second or third phase, actually, so in years 11 through 15, these properties are going to continue to grow, and the mortgage balances are going to get a little bit larger as well, or the refinance mortgage is going to be a little bit higher each year as well. So if you take a look at property number 1, we went from an original mortgage of $280,000 right here, and it increased up to almost $325,000. Then by year 11, it went up to $376,000. Well, during that time, it doesn't show it here in this particular spreadsheet, but during that time, your rents have also increased on a monthly basis as well. So yes, your mortgage is getting a little bit bigger, which can affect your cash flow in a negative way, which is going to slow down your mortgage pay down. However, you're also going to be collecting more rents, which can help offset that effect as well. So then in year 5, we were still, or with the 5-year strategy, but using joint venture money. So that previous slide was using your own money, and that is by far the simplest and easiest way to move forward. But there's not very many people who are going to be in a situation where they can afford to buy a property a year. There are definitely a few of you, and that's great. But in this particular example here, with our 5-year strategy, we have credits of $600 a month being applied to the mortgage pay down, so that our mortgage balance at the end of 5 years is $197,530. Now the challenge is that most people asked me to change this up because they said no investor is going to be willing to invest $70,000 and not have any cash flow for the first 5 years and then receive a cash out of $63,000 at the end of 5 years. Now, I know there are some who will, because not all investors are interested in cash flow today. But the mindset for most investors is they want some money today. While they've got their money invested in this deal, they want to see a return immediately. So instead of applying $600 a month to your principal pay down and accelerating the mortgage, what we're going to do is just apply $200 a month in this case, and then pay the investor $400 a month on a regular basis. So over the course of a year, the investor who's invested $70,000 is going to receive $4,800 back in his investments for the next 5 years. So by doing that, our mortgage balance is now $222,869, not the $197,000 anymore. So our cash out is going to drop. So we're not going to be able to pull out $127,000 anymore. Now we can only pull out $101,000. Now that's not going to greatly affect our cash flow in the first 5 years, because we're still able to take out our $4,000 from that transaction, and this $63,000 is not all of that money is going to be going to the investor, because they've received $4,800 a year. So you have to take that $4,800 a year out of this investor's portion, and that's how much the balance will be for the investor. So this can work in year 5 for the first 5 years. The results will be slightly lower for your cash flow, but not significant, not enough to be worried about. It's the second term when you refinance that property 80%, which is a higher mortgage than the first mortgage originally was, and you're still trying to pay your joint venture partner another $400 a month for the next 5-year term. By doing this, you now have a higher mortgage payment, and you're still paying out the $400. There may not be enough cash flow from the property to even pay the investor, let alone put any money towards the debt reduction. So in order to be able to extend the life of this program and make it sustainable, what I did was I extended it from a 5-year program up to a 7-year program. And by extending it up to 7 years, that allowed the mortgage to be paid down 2 more years. It also allowed the investor to collect more rents. So over the course of the 2 additional years, it created a bigger spread between the money owed and the value of the property. So it increased in value by for 2 more years as well. So that larger spread between the bank value and the bank balance produces more than enough cash to continue paying you out. So let's take a look at what that looks like on the analyzer here. So here we are, we've extended it up to 7 years, 2 properties a year, so that means there's 14 properties altogether. That's this column right here. And our first property was $350,000. So now our new mortgage pay down, cash out, is going to be $101,000, because our mortgage balance is just under $200,000, and we're able to finance, well, we're able to finance more than that, but we're only financing that 70% now. So we're going to split that $101,000 50-50 with the joint venture partner. Now what we're supposed to get is $67,510 each. Why is that? Well, what happens is that the joint venture partner has been receiving $400 a month on an annual basis. And that $400 a month, so I'm just double checking here. Times 12 times 7. Yeah, 33 is right. Okay. So the joint venture partner has been receiving $400 a month for the past 7 years. So they've already received $33,600 of their $67,000 payment. So they're only entitled to another $35,910. Okay. We get, you the investor, you get the full $67,510. All right, so in year 8, property number 1 generates $67,510.90, which pays us $4,000 a month. It leaves us with $19,510, which we can put in our savings account. Property number 2 is pretty close to being the same amount, just a few dollars more. So we're going to put another $19,781 into our savings account. So we receive $4,000 a month from property 1, $4,000 per month from property number 2, and that's in year 8. So combined, there's our $8,000 per month. Now, at the end of year 8, we've also accumulated just over $39,000 in our savings account. Now, that can be used for incidentals like your maintenance, or if there's a year that the property doesn't perform very well, then you can draw from the savings account to supplement one of the years, or just use it for emergency basis only. Now you can see at the end of the year 14, the savings account has actually grown to just under $300,000 there. Sorry, it's getting dry. All right, now also notice that previously we were using an appreciation of 4%. Now, I believe that 4% is a fair appreciation to use, and especially given that the market conditions go up by 6%. If you buy the property correctly, you take care of it properly, you're in a good neighborhood, etc., then there's no reason why your property shouldn't go up by 4 to 5% on an annual basis. And again, that's on average. But to be conservative, what I did was I reduced it to a 3% calculation. So property number 1 has only gone up by 3% a year. So it's now worth $430,455. Plus, we're only going to refinance it at 70% of the value, not the 80%. And by doing this, that just helps us improve our cash flow. All of the properties in this first refinance phase, this blue color, are going to be financed at the 70%. And as I say, by doing this, it just helps improve the cash flow for the investor. It helps increase a little bit more money that could potentially be then applied to the acceleration of the pay down on a monthly basis as well. Years 15, you take a look at properties number 1 and property number 2. They're paying out just over about $76,000 between the two of them. We increased the monthly payout to $5,000 a month from $4,000. So instead of making $8,000 a year, you're now making $10,000. And your savings is just under $17,000, just under $16,000. So you can see that your savings at the end of year 15 have grown to $218,000. At the end of year 21, down at the bottom right, you can see that the savings account has now grown to $360,000. And again, I want to reiterate that the savings column is a floating account. The numbers in there are totally dependent upon the performance of the property, how much it appreciates in the first place, how much you're able to refinance it at, what the market conditions are like, what the rents have been like. Have you had 100% occupancy? Have you had to dip into it for any maintenance, any capital costs? Did you have to put a new roof on any of the buildings? The nice thing about it is this money is put into a single savings account, but it can be used or applied to any of the other properties you wish. Property number 15, the value again has been increased at 3%. And you'll notice that we have actually dropped down the refinance portion to 65%. So the new mortgage that we create is no longer, it's not at 80%, it's no longer at 70%. We've actually dropped it down to 65%. And that goes for all properties in this second refinance phase. And again, by doing so, because the mortgages are getting a little bit larger, what we want to do is we want to keep the cost down so we can generate some cash flow for the investor on a monthly basis and hopefully have some left over that we can apply towards the mortgage pay down as well. So by keeping it at 65%, that helps achieve that. The remaining equity is also growing considerably faster as well. So you see the equity in there is now $185,000. Our equity is right here. And we started off with a $70,000 investment. So we only owe the $70,000 plus interest back to the investor. The investor doesn't get all of this equity. That becomes part of your proceeds if and when you sell the property. So we finished the end of phase 3. We're now 21 years into the project. It all depends on where you're at in your particular life. You know, if you started this program at the age of 30, well, you're now 51, you may want to continue on with the program for another phase, or you may want two phases. Or if you're a little bit older and you started this at age 50, for example, you're now 71, and you're looking at phasing out, you may want to consider selling the properties. So you either continue with the refinance or you start liquidating the properties. Well, simply for the exercise, I started to liquidate the properties. That's why we have them in red here. So property number 1, the value of it is $651,000, just over $651,000, and that's based on a 3% appreciation. The sales price, what I did was 97% of asking. And again, what's the sale price going to be? Well, it depends on the market conditions at the time. It depends on the demand for the type of property you have. There's a lot of variables out there. But assuming that the sale or the list price for the property is the same as the value I have in that column, so $651,000, when a property goes on the market for sale, generally speaking, it does it sells for 97% of the asking price. Sometimes it can sell for 110%. Other times it could sell for 85 or 90%. But on average, it's 97%. The mortgage balance is based upon a 4% interest rate calculation. I don't believe the interest rates will be that high at that point in time. But again, that's only my belief. They could be higher, could be lower. So you cash out. So you've got your original sale. You've got the sale price less the mortgage balance, less the initial down payment, which was $70,000, plus all of the closing costs related to that. So you receive $270,000, of which the joint venture partner is going to receive $118,000 because they've already received $33,600 in their monthly payments. So the balance of what they are owed is $118,000, and that brings it up to almost $152,000 that the joint venture partner will have received at that point in time, which gives them the equivalent of a 31% return on their investment. Now, your portion of the sale, during the year that you sell the property, you are going to continue to pay yourself another $7,000 a month from each transaction. And the money that's left over, so that's almost $68,000. That's from the $152,000 you see right here. Okay, that's going to be added into your savings account. So at the end of year 22, you now have approximately $500,000. Now this is before tax money in your savings account. At the end of year 28, all properties have been sold. And actually that is before tax dollars, but there are no tax dollars on these because this has all been borrowed money as well. So end of year 28, all properties sold, and your savings has grown to $1.42 million. Going back to this number here, actually, your savings account up until the time that you start selling properties is tax-free. There is going to be taxable income from this point on as a result of the sale of your properties. And again, I can't even guess as to what the taxable income is going to, or taxable expense is going to be for you, because everybody's situation is unique and different. But there's a capital gain a tax that you have to pay. So 50% of the profit in that property from the day that you bought it to the day that you sold it is going to be taxable income. So again, it's something you need to speak with your accountant about when it comes time to selling the properties out. Because maybe it doesn't make sense to sell the properties. Maybe it makes more sense to hang on to the properties and sell all those properties out. You know, when you know your life is coming to an end, you're in your 85 or 90 years old, maybe now's the time to sell it and pay the tax man at that point in time, because you certainly don't need the cash flow the same as you do when you're 70 years of age. All right, so let's just take a quick look at the summary that's located at the bottom of the sheet. So the income from years 1 to 7 is none for yourself, except for any finder fees that you charge, and by all means, it's very easy to justify a finder's fee. So you can be charging $5,000 or $6,000 for each transaction that you do. You're doing 2 deals a year, so that's $10,000 to $12,000 of additional income that you could generate while you're putting these deals together. That can help bridge from year 1 to year 7 when you're not receiving any cash flow from the properties. From years 8 to 14, I had it in my model that you were paying you $8,000 per month, and you can also start a savings account with the additional funds from the refinance. And then from years 15 to 8, that can grow, your monthly amount can grow up to $14,000. And again, you know, you could be fine continuing on from year 15 to 28 at $8,000, or maybe you only need $10,000 or $12,000. Or maybe from the very beginning you only need $6,000. Everybody's situation is unique and different, and your needs will dictate how you put your plan together to achieve your goals. So at the end of year 71, you've got $360,000 in savings. Again, though, this is greatly dependent upon any cash calls that you've experienced prior to year 21. And from years 22 on, if you were to start selling your properties, your portfolio would then grow to over $1.3 million. And again, this is before tax dollars. The tax implications is going to be unique and different for everybody. But at $1.3 million, with virtually no, you put that money in a no interest bearing account, you can draw $8,000 a month for the next 15 years. So again, if you were 50 years old when you started this program, you started selling off when you were 71. You're now 78 years of age, and you've got $8,000 a month coming in for the next 15 years. I think most people would be very comfortable and very happy with that. Now, I do want to go over this disclaimer once more, because it's extremely important that you understand that everything we've covered here is strictly hypothetical. However, the numbers that I'm using are realistic numbers. They're real numbers today. My predictions, I believe, are accurate, but there's no guarantees that they are going to come to fruition. It also, the results are going to depend greatly upon your market conditions. They're going to depend upon your ability to buy good properties versus bad properties, where you buy the properties, what neighborhoods, what interest rates you qualify for based upon your personal credit rating, the appreciation rates. Every market is going to appreciate. In the East Coast, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, etc., appreciation rates out there are considerably lower than they are in the big cities of Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary. Down in the States, the same thing. You're going to have very different appreciation rates in the big cities versus the rural areas and or the southern markets, etc. It's also going to be extremely dependent upon your own personal goals. What are your needs, and your ability to create a plan and then stick to that plan. So let's just quickly go over what I believe you need to do. The first thing you need to do is determine what it is you actually need versus what you want. And I'm talking dollar-wise. Do you need $8,000 a month, or do you want $8,000 a month? Do you need $5,000 a month and you want $15,000? That's fine, but identify what it is you need and aim for what you need versus what you want first. When do you actually need this by? And will dictate how aggressive, assertive you need to be in reaching your goals. What resources do you currently have available to you, and what resources do you actually need? So sit down and identify what sources you need, then assess what you actually have before you start going looking for other resources such as joint venture partners. Create a plan that's based upon what you have learned here over the course of these 5 modules. Then initiate your plan, and don't be afraid to review it and tweak your plan on an annual basis. This is something that a lot of people get stuck on. They get stuck creating a plan in the first place because they want it to be the perfect plan. Well, there is no perfect plan, so don't get hung up on that. Once you get a plan put in place, don't be afraid to tweak your plan, change it, go in a different direction, whatever the case may be. But to help you with making that decision, whether you move in a different direction or not, I'll just share with you a very quick question you can ask yourself. So every time you are presented with an opportunity, a new opportunity, simply ask yourself this question: will this new opportunity get me closer to or further away from my ultimate goal of where I want to be and what I want to achieve? Now, I'll just share a quick little story with you. Joanne and I, myself in particular, I suffer from the shiny object syndrome. So a new opportunity presents itself, I'm off like a rabbit chasing that one. And I think it's a great idea. In the meantime, I'm not paying attention to my initial goals. And I could be distracted for a week, I could be distracted for months, I could be distracted for a year. So what we have decided to do was every time a new opportunity presents itself to either of us, we ask ourselves, will this get us closer to or further away from our goal? Now, this past year, an opportunity was presented to us, and we both got really excited about it. And we both started down this rabbit hole together, which is unusual. And it was appealing to both of us because we both have a very, very soft heart for seniors, especially seniors who can't afford good, clean, affordable housing. And that's a big part of my personal goal, is to build an apartment building for seniors, for affordable housing. So that's my goal. That's the direction I'm going in for me personally. And we had this opportunity to buy this seniors housing complex. The big difference was, though, that they offered meals, they offered medication, they offered more services. Our goal is to create single family housing or apartment living, but not assisted living. So we were almost to the point of making an offer. We spent a lot of time analyzing the property, visiting the property. We were about ready to make an official offer on the property when we just looked at each other and we said, is this getting us closer to or further away from our goal? And we really studied it, and we decided that this didn't fit in our plans, and it was going to be a huge distraction, more work than what we actually needed. So we dropped it right then and there, and with no regrets. And we both feel like we dodged a bullet. It would have been a good business, but it didn't fit our model. And we came to that realization simply by asking that question. So it's a good question to ask yourself in the future, and help keep you on track. So I hope you enjoyed, that's the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed the 5 Homes to Freedom 5 modules. We will be having more live, we didn't have any questions tonight, so I just did the review. We will be having more live recordings of reviews and Q&As in the fall of 2016. My plan is that spring and fall I will do updates. So As new students come on board, they'll have the opportunity to ask questions and participate in the live calls as well. So if you, I encourage you to continue going through the different modules, review them on a regular basis, and then participate in the calls as they become available. You've also automatically been enrolled in my monthly coaching calls. This is a call that I host on every second Tuesday of the month. So I think that's the 12th of July that's coming up. And you should, if you have not received an email, you will be receiving an email very shortly about the call. To remind you about the call, it's at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And this call is for all of my students in all of my different programs. So there could be a student on there asking a question about an apartment building. There could be a student on there talking about rent to owns, or there could be students on there talking about the 5 Homes to Freedom program. So it's questions from all over the map, basically, and usually have a lot of questions. It's approximately an hour long. And doesn't matter if the questions are from another course, they can still provide great value to you as well. So I hope to see you on the next call, on every call moving forward as well. And I look forward to seeing you at the top. Take care now.